out to James Belcher, a comrade level patron. As I said, he sent in this query for us, and it's about HR1, which has been pretty controversial bill. Some people on the left singing its praises, while others totally, calling it a disgrace. And James says, hey, y'all, Lawrence Lessig, in a piece on Medium, has weighed in on HR1, the For the People Act, key sections of which both the Greens and the People's Party oppose. Those parties have cited provisions which would make it way harder for anyone to ever compete seriously against the duopoly of Democrats and Republicans. Lessig says that those bad parts can't be removed as a practical matter, and that the bill will be voted on as a whole, up or down. It seems like strong public pressure could help change that outcome. And let us stop for 2 seconds and get this right. But Lessig doesn't want to even try, lest it sink the bill as a whole. There's about 2 weeks to act on this, since Amy Klobuchar is holding a Senate hearing on the 24th. Of note, this legislation is not being passed using reconciliation. And this bill is, from what I've heard, people are saying
what Ryan Grimm was talking about the other day.
Yeah, and people are saying that although this bill has just passed the House, they're saying that unless the Democrats abolish the filibuster, it will likely die in the Senate. And are you familiar with HR1, Zach? Are you do you know what it's about, like the voting rights aspects of it?
Yeah, I'm like vaguely familiar with it. I mean, I wouldn't call myself like a fucking expert. So, and just to make sure that I have Lawrence Lessig's position here, he's saying that he still supports this legislation, even though those parts can't be removed, and trying to remove those parts is detrimental to the music. Yeah, fuck that. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I had that on, and I'd understand that clearly, because Lawrence Lessig, he's one of those guys. He's really into like campaign finance reform, and he wrote that book called Republic Lost that I checked out, and he's got some good ideas. Like, yeah, we need to fucking massively reform our campaign finance, but it's not like this is a guy that I'm looking to like give me like fucking analysis on shit, right? Okay. But anyway, I'm sure he's like a fucking fine guy. But I mean, is his main issue is like, overturning Citizens United, which is an absolute necessity. And, I agree with him on that. But
yeah,
this idea that we should succumb to the duopoly, and then I'll pass it off to you, Gavin. The idea that we should succumb to the duopoly and just let the Democrats and Republicans always have the benefit of the doubt, always keep battling them, is exactly why we will never get campaign finance reform, because neither the Democrats nor the Republicans want it. So I would just tell somebody like Lawrence Lessig that if you want campaign finance reform, you can't just work within the duopoly. So then I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, look what happened in the primary, where the candidate who was actually financing his, campaign in a more clean way was basically given the boot at the expense of Joe Biden, who was raising, obsequious amounts of money from the health insurance industry, for example. So I do think it is ridiculous to call yourself, a campaign finance expert or, advocate, and then also, suggest that the duopoly continues to exist and not be challenged, or that, third parties shouldn't even have the right to do so. And again, there are seemingly really good aspects of this bill. Mondaire Jones was on Democracy Now! Talking about how it, includes some really historic provisions for voting rights, especially in the South, especially in, disenfranchised communities. I believe there's automatic voter registration, which would be huge. So there are some undeniably, mammoth, incredibly positive, downright historic aspects of this bill that we do not want to underplay at all. Again, it seemingly would really help combat the disenfranchisement of black and brown communities by the Republican Party, which has been just this unrelenting project now. It is undeniable that they are involved in the project of voter suppression. That being said,
and have been for fucking decades.
Yeah.
70 years.
Yeah. That's literally the project of the Republican Party. Essentially, they lose when more people vote. That is an undeniable fact. So I think that there are some good parts of this bill. Unfortunately, as with most bills that do have decent aspects to them in Washington, they get, weighed down with a bunch of shit. They get packed full of a bunch of this extra bullshit, which is inserted in there by the Democratic Party. Because, again, none of the headlines about HR1 are going to be about the way that it disenfranchises third parties and the Green Party or the People's Party or fill in the blank third party. All the headlines are going to be about the historic nature of the bill and the fact that it reduces the inequality when it comes to voting access. So I think it's a mixed bag for sure, and it really is unfortunate that not enough people are acknowledging this.
Jump back in here because I think that this is something that we have to grapple with as a form of strategy that's going to be applied in the future to fuck the left, right? So why wouldn't the Democrats wrap their legislation that's going to be used to undermine any kind of project to oppose them in the future in historic legislation that is going to absolutely benefit the people that are those organizations are going to peel votes away from them, right? So essentially what I'm trying to say is it makes perfect sense for them to do this from a strategic standpoint, right? While they are doing all of this historic shit, right? Which that we all know they don't really want to do, right? This is how this is them giving just the little bit that the Dems are going to give. And when they're doing that, they're going to make sure that they also take, right? What are they taking? They're taking the potential for us to, in the future, engage in a way that will meaningfully push for things like climate justice, like a healthcare system that provides zero-cost healthcare to everyone, housing for everybody as a fundamental human right. These dignifying elements of society that we are demanding and that we have every right to demand are now going to be further removed from us based on the acquisition of this, right? And so, of course, they're going to give you a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down, right? And of course, and it's also going to completely obscure the harm that's being done. And this is a very typical neoliberal move, right? This is the entire neoliberal fabrication. This is how they swindle you, essentially.
Absolutely. And I wanted to play this clip. As I was about to say, I think a lot of people, including myself, have pretty mixed feelings about the 2020 Green Party ticket. I was a big fan of Angela Walker, slightly less so of Howie Hawkins, and I really wasn't a fan of the way they handled the nominating process and primary overall. We've gone over that at length on this show. However, I do think that this was a really actually good clip from Howie Hawkins' YouTube channel, and he still, I guess, does shows with Angela Walker.
I have an
article. They're breaking down HR1 and give a pretty good explanation as to the issues with it. In the first 2 or 3 minutes here, he breaks this down pretty well. So I thought I'd play this for you guys to get a better idea of the issues with HR1 and the real challenges they're going to present to third parties and smaller and independent candidates too, that are totally not being talked about at all, even by people on the nominal left.
Article that will be up on the Counterpunch website either tomorrow or Thursday probably about the campaign finance section of HR1, which is an omnibus voting reform bill. Has 3 sections, one on voting, a lot of good measures in there, make it easier to vote, make it harder to prevent people from voting. And it's got an ethics section, which has some good things like requiring presidential candidates to disclose their tax returns. But buried in the middle of it is a campaign finance reform that I say is a reform that doesn't reform. One thing it does is increased by 5 times the amount of money you've got to raise to qualify, which puts it beyond the reach of third parties like the Green Party. Now, under the current public funding of presidential campaigns, the presidential primary matching funds, you have to raise $5,000 in 20 states in contributions of $250 or less. And our campaign was the only campaign that qualified and applied for those funds. The major party candidates don't apply these days because if you accept public money, there's a cap on how much private money you can spend, which this year was about $52 million. And for the major party candidates, that's not enough. The cost of campaigning has just gone up through the roof so much that they haven't been taking it in recent elections. So that's one problem. It basically excludes third parties. And then it provides a 6-to-1 match for the money you do raise. Now it's a 1-to-1 match, which may sound good, but when you think about it, what that does is increase the disparity between candidates 7-fold. So if suppose the Green Party barely qualifies at $500,000, but a small major party candidate like Marianne Williamson or Julian Castro, they raised about $5 million in small contributions. So multiply both of those qualified amounts of funds by 6 times. So the Green would get $350,000 or $3.5 million. And, you know, a candidate like Julian Castro would get $45 million. So the disparity increases from $4.5 million to $31.5 million, which is a 7-fold increase.